When Robert De Niro, with his legendary gaze, walked into the Tonight Show studio, it seemed that the very space around him was filled with respect. Jimmy Fallon, as always, was ready for his signature, impeccable conversation. But in just a few minutes, what started out as another routine promotional tour for the movie turned into a tense duel where words were weapons and reputations were stakes. And no one could have predicted that such a seemingly innocent airing would become an arena for such a shocking conflict. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the latest stories. The soft glow of the studio lights bathes the glossy floor of Jimmy Fallon's set as the audience, warmed by the host's opening jokes, erupts in applause when Robert De Niro steps onto the stage. His walk is confident yet restrained, as if he still carries the shadow of the characters that made him a legend. A tailored gray suit fits him perfectly, but a slight asymmetry in his smile betrays fatigue. Perhaps from a long day, perhaps from countless interviews like this one. Jimmy, as always, radiates energy. His laugh is loud, his movements quick, his eyes searching De Niro for that spark he coaxes from guests to fuel his ratings-driven show. "Robert, welcome. You look like you just stepped off the set of Taxi Driver," Fallon quips, and the audience roars with laughter. De Niro nods, his smile widening slightly, but his eyes remain guarded. They sit, and Jimmy starts with safe questions. Morning routines, how De Niro makes his coffee, memories from shooting Mean Streets. "You know, I still remember sitting in this dive with Marty, Scorsese, drinking cheap coffee, arguing about how to shoot a scene without a single word," De Niro says, his voice raspy but warm, commanding the audience's attention. They sense they're in the presence of not just an actor, but a man who's lived a lifetime on screen. Jimmy nods, his smile broader than necessary, then shifts his tone. "So, Robert, tell me, have you ever regretted how some roles, those iconic tough guy parts, turned you into this symbol of aggression for Hollywood execs? Like, did that ever feel limiting?" The room quiets. The question sounds innocent, but there's a sharp edge to it, as if Fallon is testing how far he can push. De Niro squints slightly, his fingers on the armrest twitching almost imperceptibly. "Limiting?" he repeats, a hint of irony in his voice. "I do what I feel. If someone thinks I'm an aggression symbol, that's their problem, not mine." The audience laughs, but it's a nervous chuckle, as if they sense the air in the studio thickening. Jimmy, undeterred, presses on. "Okay, but, your Hollywood connections, ever had to use them not for art but, say, for silence? To keep things off the record?" The question hangs in the air like a stone dropped into still water. De Niro freezes, his gaze heavy, as if trying to decipher Fallon's intent. "Silence?" he says slowly, a cold edge creeping into his voice. "What are you getting at, Jimmy? Be specific." The audience tenses. Someone exhales too loudly. Fallon laughs, but it's forced, and he quickly pivots. All right, just kidding. But here's another one. You're vocal about politics, which is awesome, but does it ever feel like it overshadows your acting?" De Niro leans back, his face hardening. "Overshadows?" he echoes, irritation creeping into his tone. "I say what I believe. If people don't like it, they can change the channel." The audience claps, but the applause is uneven, as if some sense a line has been crossed. Jimmy, feeling the tension, tries to lighten the mood with a joke, but his voice wavers slightly. "Oh, Robert, you're always straight as an arrow. But listen, there are rumors some of your old projects never saw the light of day, not because of quality. That true?" De Niro stares at Fallon like he's just been challenged to a duel. His jaw tightens. His fingers grip the mic on his collar. "Rumors?" he says, his voice low but menacing. "You really want to talk about rumors, Jimmy?" The studio falls silent. Cameras capture every movement, every glance. Viewers at home hold their breath, waiting for what's next. The air crackles with electricity, as if one wrong move could ignite an explosion. Jimmy, sensing he's losing control, takes a quick sip of water, his hand trembling slightly as he sets the glass down. "Okay, Robert, let's lighten things up," he says, trying to reclaim his breezy tone. but his voice betrays uncertainty. The audience, which had just been clapping, now sits in tense silence, as if waiting for the next move in a chess game with stakes higher than they seem. I'm not talking about rumors, Fallon continues. I just mean you're a living legend, and people are always looking for something to nitpick. Let's switch gears. Tell us, what's it like working with younger actors? They must be shaking in their boots when they see you on set. The question feels safe, but De Niro's eyes flash with something new. Not anger, but a mix of irritation and weariness. Shaking? He repeats, his lips curling into a faint smile that's more like a grimace. Maybe they are, but I'm not their babysitter, Jimmy. If they're not ready, that's their problem. The audience laughs, but it's uneven, as if they're unsure whether it's a joke or a jab. Fallon nods, his smile strained, and decides to dig deeper, as if sensing the moment for a real show has arrived. Oh, I bet you keep everyone on their toes. But tell me, Robert, he pauses for effect, do you ever go home after a shoot and think, God, I could have played that better? Or are you always confident in every take? The question sounds harmless, but in the context of what's come before, it hits a nerve. De Niro leans back, his face darkening, his fingers releasing the mic to clench into a fist. You serious? He says, his voice quiet but cutting like a blade. You think I sit at home second-guessing every scene? I do my job, Jimmy, and you do yours, asking questions that sound smart but are really just poking at people for headlines. The audience gasps, a few clap, but most sit in stunned silence. Fallon, whose career is built on being the nice guy, looks like he's been slapped. He opens his mouth to respond, but De Niro doesn't let him. You want to know about my work? The actor continues, his voice gaining strength, its raspy timbre making every word heavy as stone. I don't sit around wondering if I could have done better. I do what I can with what I've got. And you're sitting here throwing these questions at me like I'm some rookie who needs to justify himself. The studio freezes. Cameras, usually catching every laugh or cheer, now focus on the tense faces of the crew, unsure where to point their lenses. Fallon tries to salvage things. Robert, that's not what I meant, you know that. I just want people to see the real you. But his words ring hollow, and De Niro senses it. The real me? He repeats, his eyes narrowing. You want the real me? Then drop these sneaky questions. Ask me something that doesn't sound like it came from a gossip rag. The audience erupts in applause, louder this time, as if they feel De Niro is speaking not just for himself, but for anyone cornered by interviews like this. Fallon, though, doesn't back down. He leans forward, his smile gone, a sharp edge in his voice. All right, Robert, let's get real. You talk a lot about principles, about standing up for what you believe in. But have you ever compromised? You know, for a role, a project, for peace? The question lands like a slap, and De Niro seems to feel it physically. His face reddens, his jaw clenches so tightly the muscles are visible. Compromise? He repeats, his voice now a low, almost whispered growl, yet all the more menacing. You think I'm here to tell you how I compromised? Do you have any idea what it means to work in this industry for 50 years? Fallon, realizing he's gone too far, tries to turn it into a joke. Oh, I just want you to share some wisdom, Robert. You know I'm a fan. But De Niro isn't buying it. He stands slowly, and the audience freezes, as if time itself has stopped. You know, Jimmy, he says, unclipping his mic and holding it in his hand, I came here to talk about movies, and you turned it into an interrogation. He drops the mic to the floor, not forcefully, but with contempt, and the sound echoes through the studio like a gunshot. Without another word, he turns and walks off stage, leaving Fallon alone under the spotlight. The audience erupts in whispers and gasps, some clapping, some stunned. Fallon, trying to save the show, forces a laugh and says, Well, that was Robert De Niro, folks. We'll be back after the break. But his voice shakes, and it's clear he doesn't know how to fix this. Backstage, De Niro pauses, his breathing heavy, hands trembling with anger. He doesn't regret his actions, but a flicker of something like sadness crosses his eyes, as if he knows this moment will change everything. Meanwhile, social media explodes. Some call De Niro a hero, others a spoiled egomaniac, while others blame Fallon for crossing a line. The show's ratings waver, but one thing is clear. This night will go down in television history, and not everyone will emerge unscathed. What happens next remains an open question. The studio empties, the lights dim, and the hum of equipment fades, but the echo of the scandal with Robert De Niro lingers. Backstage, in a cramped dressing room, De Niro sits on the edge of a couch, clutching a water bottle someone from the crew handed him. His face is unreadable, but his fingers gripping the plastic betray his tension. An assistant director knocks timidly, suggesting he return to the stage to smooth things over, but De Niro waves him off. "I said what I needed to say." His voice is raspy but calm, as if the anger that erupted on stage has burned out, leaving only exhaustion. Meanwhile, social media is ablaze. The hashtag number De Niro walkout racks up millions of views, and clips of the show spread across X faster than any trailer for his films. Some praise De Niro for standing his ground against cheap provocations. Others call his behavior arrogant, accusing him of diva antics. Memes pop up with taxi driver stills, De Niro pointing a gun with the caption, "You talking to me, Jimmy?" But some notice something else in his eyes, not just anger, but pain, as if Fallon touched something deeper than his actor's ego. In the studio, Fallon wraps up the show, trying to keep his smile, but his jokes fall flat, and the audience responds tepidly. After the broadcast, he locks himself in his office, scrolling through X on his phone. The comments cut like knives. "Fallon went too far. That was humiliating. Jimmy, you lost respect." The show's ratings dip, and producers are already texting him, urging him to fix this. But Jimmy, staring at his phone's dark screen, feels not just pressure but something like shame. He knew the questions were meant to be edgy. His team pushed for something viral, but he didn't expect De Niro, whom he always saw as unshakable, to explode so suddenly. A memory flashes through Fallon's mind. Himself as a young comedian, terrified of bombing on stage, scared his jokes wouldn't land. Has he now become the kind of person who'd humiliate someone else for clout? The next day, tabloids scream with headlines. De Niro drops mic on Fallon's show. Is the era of friendly talk shows over? But behind the noise is silence. De Niro offers no comments, and Fallon avoids the press. A post on X from an anonymous user claims they saw De Niro in a cafe near the studio after the show, sitting alone, flipping through an old notebook, looking not angry but lost. Whether it's true or not, no one knows, but the post garners thousands of reposts. The story isn't over. It's only beginning to unfold, leaving questions. Can Fallon regain his audience's trust? What drove De Niro to walk off so abruptly? The answers are still to come, and they promise to be as painful as this night.